Hey folks, we're going to do a little more on our Scottish Gaelic tattoo app tonight, but this time we're doing a little experiment, and I'll show you what I mean. So let me get my programming screen up so you can see this. This is what we worked on last time. We made it so that you can get to each of these two things, and I can show you that too. But right now the data is, pardon me, it's prototype data, which means that we've just hard-coded it in. We're not getting any of the data down for either of those screens from an actual service. Now, we do get some data in the app from a service, and I'll show you what I mean by that when it comes up. So this is a smaller version of the device than the screen was initially built for, which is why you'll see that these are in one column. But essentially, we get these blog posts from a service, and then like these names, these category names are hard-coded, and the clans are hard-coded. So ultimately what I would like to be able to do, of course, is get these from an API. Now, pardon me, we talked in a previous stream about making a prototype API on Google Docs, or rather, yeah, Google Docs, where we made a Google Sheet and then created an API from that, and I can show you that here. And ultimately, we will be able to use this as practice for integration. But there are a number of steps we have to do before that, including figuring out what we even want our backend to look like. And so, let me show this to you real quick. So this is our database as a Google Doc, right? And then we get it back in like a JSON format here. So I'll link the video in the description where we talk about exactly how to do this. Let me see if I have the actual call for you. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, I'll link that in the description, but we're not even going to mess with that today. The very first thing that I would like to do is figure out if we can genericize our service. And I'm saying up front, this might not be a good idea. Generally, I advise not generalizing things until you're using them in at least 3 places. I'm going to generalize after 1, and it's more to experiment with generics in Swift than it is to do anything. We might end up rolling back every single thing that we work on tonight, but I thought it would be a fun thing to kind of try, and so this is what we're going to do. We're going to try to refactor this blog post service towards a general service, and then extending from that a blog post service. Here's what I mean by that. So first we're going to rename everything to something a little bit more generic. So I'm going to rename in particular these errors to API service error, right? So we got our API service error, and then what we're going to do right here is we're going to refactor this towards API service, or rather HTTP service. And I'm also going to make that HTTP service error. The reason I'm going to do this is that API technically can refer to any programming interface, is not specifically HTTP APIs, even though we frequently use it as such. Why is it not letting me rename? All right, we might have to come back to it after it calms down. So here's what we're going to do. The very first thing that we're going to do is figure out exactly how we want this to work. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to replace that with a generic. So that's going to involve a couple things. So the very first thing that I would like to do is make a new class down here, class BlogPostService, that extends our HTTP service. I'm going to show you what we're going to do in here. Let's see if it'll let me rename this yet, or if I'm going to have to restart. I'm going to have to restart Xcode, aren't I? Oh, right. Get rid of that. This is where I was experimenting with generics earlier. Certainly taking a sweet time. All right, it's getting ready to let me rename. Thank goodness. Never rename something and then decide you want to rename it again, apparently, in Xcode. I kid, it's an excellent editor. All right, so we got our HTTP service here, and what we're going to do is we're going to make this take in some kind of return type. And that's going to be here. All right, and we're going to replace it everywhere. And I'm going to rename that to result. It's going to be a set. Oh, my T has to be decodable. Okay, so we'll say T has to conform to decodable. This is a generic type in Swift, but we can say it has to conform to a given protocol. Awesome. And now it needs our array blog posts. And that type should be appropriate. And then what we're going to do is yank that right there. And then, can I do an abstract attribute? Swift abstract attribute. Because I want every, we're going to have to use a protocol. That's fine. So this is what we're going to do. Everybody has to conform to a protocol that we're going to write. With endpoint, I'm going to call it. Can you have attributes in a protocol? The other option is to give it a crappy default. Which I prefer to not have to do. Yeah, you can do that. You know what? Let's mess with this later. Let's see if we can get what we have working first. And here's how I'm going to do that. Please replace in subclass with proper endpoint. Let's make it clear what that means, like so. CPM, calm. There we go. And then it's going to tell me can't override. All right, so let's see if that works. Wherever we're using our HTTP service, which is going to be on our home view controller. Yeah, check it out. So we're going to get our blog post service. Ultimately, I'm going to yank those out. Promise. Let's see if it just works. Now, what's not going to work is a test for sure, but we'll get there. Reference to generic type. Oh. Blog post service. Cannot override Swift. Cannot override with a stored property. Oh, look at that. You can do it like this. You know, I don't hate that. Let's do this. So we have our HTTP service, right? And I want it to be called endpoint. Oh, relax. HTTPS : please put a proper endpoint in subclass.com. Great, and as a matter of fact, you know what? I don't even actually want to have a default. You have to provide it. End of. Love it. So then, yeah, that's it. Init super dot init with the endpoint, yada, 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 yada. All right, let's see if these all clear when I just try to run it again. No. Immutable value may only be initialized once because I made it a let variable. Ver. Well, the build succeeded. That's positive news. Let's see if it actually works. Apparently it works. Y'all, isn't that cute? I love our little weight spinner. Remember that? Great. So we made our thing generic. Actually, was not as terrible as I thought it was going to be. So what I actually want to do is we have our HTTP service, right? And do I really want to put all the services in their own files, or do I want them together? I don't know if I like what I'm about to do. I don't recommend this. Okay. I don't need this. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's... I don't hate it. I might hate it. Whatever. So we got our blog post service, right? Watch this. Our tests are all going to eat it. Yeah. So this now has to be a blog post service. And we need to rename that method right there. So it's worth noting that we don't necessarily want our test to end up like this. We're just trying to get them to run right now. So let's try running them again. Oh, damn. And what happens if we run literally everything? Everything succeeds. All right, well, that's good news. So then check it out. What if we were to do, there is one more change I want to make, which is the HTTP service. I want to rename this. This is how I want to do it. Retrieve. Do I hate that? I might hate that too. I'm not sure if I hate that yet. Pardon me. Everything probably should still work. What did I do with my drink? Out of almond milk. Water. Stuff ran. Get one of these. Oh. Fun fact. The amount of caffeine in chocolate-covered espresso beans is such that the caffeine from the chocolate will keep you up before the caffeine in the espresso beans will. Which I looked up one time. So check it out. We've got our service here now, genericized, which means that when it's time to put one of these behind a service, like this, it'll be potentially a little faster to put a service in. Now, before I change anything else, let me go ahead and make a commit. Open a tab. I don't know if y'all can see that. Hold on. Bigger, more. There we go. There we go. Add everything that has been staged at some point. Cool. And what this is extract service components into a generic base layer with extensions that specify the endpoint and the return JSON, well, and the return value structure. Not the worst refactor, actually. That's pretty exciting. All right, so in the next stream, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to start extracting some of this, not necessarily into services that like hit an endpoint yet, but into services to allow us to begin to record an idea of what we want endpoints to look like, such that we can build a server that satisfies those needs. So I'll see you then.